You're watching Chicagoland Television CLTV News. Gang members across Chicago and the nation are using social media more and more, making threats against rivals, using online threats, often escalating that into real-life violence. Joining us by Skype from New York City, Desmond Patton. He's a professor and researcher at Columbia University. Professor Patton, you have studied this at length. Talk about the methods you used for doing the study and what you found.
Thank you. I use two different methods. I use qualitative methods with young people in Chicago to really understand how they make meaning of threats online and to what extent they think about violence that occurs in the neighborhood and how it is used as a point of narration on Twitter. And then I also analyze data on Twitter as well. So I work with data scientists here at Columbia University to interpret threats online using natural language processing tools.
Important in your research, you have found that these aggressive perspectives, this propensity for violence, does not begin with social media.
Absolutely. One of the kind of the misinformation that is out there currently is that young people who live in marginalized communities are jumping online and just immediately making these violent, aggressive communications online. What I've learned is that a lot of these communications are based and rooted in trauma, stress, and everyday violence that occurs in these neighborhoods. And so these young people who are spending an enormous amount of time are narrating that part of their life online as well. They're looking for a community, they're looking for people to talk to, and they're sharing their lives online.
Did you find things that were particular to Chicago when it comes to their propensity for violence and their use of social media?
What has been really interesting is kind of the use of drill music as a way in which to communicate everyday life experiences. I'm also seeing things like what I call in my research spatial referencing, where young people are using hashtags and they're really denoting their location online. So they may post their address or a house where they are, where they frequently visit as well. In addition, they're also using sub-tagging, where they are tagging a number of individuals and then making a blank statement that could be perceived as aggressive as a way to communicate a threat online as well.
We're showing actually a photo of a Chicago gang member, a female you specifically studied. What was interesting and unique about Chicago?
I think what was more interesting about this young lady is that she had a host of experiences throughout her life that really impacted her experiences online. And I think that what's unique about Chicago is that there is so much violence that young people are going through, and they don't have a lot of outlets to express themselves. There aren't a number of mental health services that are located in those neighborhoods.
Right.
People don't have access to these spaces. So social media becomes a space in which to talk about these things. But oftentimes it is collapsed within the local ecology of violence, and that becomes the very point with which they communicate these thoughts.
There's been some use in Chicago of cognitive behavioral therapy in addition to looking at social media. My question for you is whether those two things working together, or your study of social media use in these kinds of violent crimes, can help to either predict or reduce such crime.
Absolutely, but I think we need to kind of pull back and also think about what are young people actually saying. And what I've learned is that the way in which young people communicate online is unique and very different. And if you aren't from that neighborhood, if you're not from that context, it's really hard to understand what young people are saying. So we really need to make sure that we are accurately understanding it and depicting what young people are saying. So I would suggest that we also talk directly with young people about their experiences online and how they communicate online and why this is such an important venue. Understanding these conditions would really help us to think about ways to prevent and intervene in violence that occurs online.
All right, Professor Desmond Patton of Columbia University, New York City. Your Twitter handle is at SafeLab, at SAFELAB. Thank you for joining us, Professor Patton.
Thank you so much.